So can you tell us a little bit about what your upbringing was like and where you came from?
Cool. Yeah. From the southwest of Western Australia. My accent doesn't seem to be as strong as yours, so some people will miss that occasionally. But I grew up in a small farming town, uh, like 3,000 people, basically. My uncle and my cousins, they lived on like an actual farm, so I used to work on lots of farms, like my cousins' farms, my uncle's farms, back in the day, in between summers and stuff. Was a massive nerd, like literally top of the class, straight, what you call like a straight A student or whatever,
Yep.
and ended up going to university. I was quite athletic though. I played basketball my whole life, so it was really, really into my sports. And yeah, kind of wasn't full blown nerd. Definitely wasn't full blown jock. So I kind of navigated that, social landscape a bit in high school and university and things. Went on to university, ended up getting involved heavily with like running parties, running events, student body organizations. Ended up becoming like the president of my college there. Took on like leadership roles. That was sort of a thing that it came very naturally to me. Public speaking was something that came very naturally to me. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, there was a lot of that. And but my degree was in chemistry of all things. So I have an honors degree in chemistry. I'm actually a published scientific author, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful. Beautiful.
from my undergrad, I have like me and my supervisor, we published like a scientific paper before I even graduated. So I'm technically a published scientific author.
Wow. Yeah.
Achiever.
Yeah, and then I went on to work in chemistry for a few years, and then eventually I got out of that and started pursuing more entrepreneurial things.
Very nice.
What do you think it was that made you take that switch? Because I mean, going from like a straight A student, high achiever, seems like, to something a lot more risky, you could say.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think I can pinpoint it down very accurately. So I did chemistry for a couple of years, worked for like a pharmaceutical company, and then I saved up that money, and then I went traveling. I went through South America, did all the kind of like the very typical Australian gap year backpacking kind of thing.
Yeah.
Went through South America, ended up through America a little bit, did a little bit of Canada. Then I came back, and a friend of mine, he was going to do something very similar. I kind of inspired him to go off on a trip, and he started following this blog, this online newsletter by a guy called Simon Black. I think it was called Sovereign Man was the name of the newsletter. I think that still exists. And this guy, he put on what you would call a youth entrepreneurship conference. And so basically it was this guy called Simon Black and a couple other guys, and they were all self-made American millionaires, right? And every year they put on this conference where they invited like 50 people from all around the world. They had to be under the age of 25 or something like that. Young people basically, and they had to be keen and interested in entrepreneurship. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. And my buddy had sent me this application. He's like, yo, I was sitting there at work at the time when I got this guy's email. He's like, yo, this thing sounds exactly like what you need. It's like right up your alley. Applications close tonight, so you better get your application in right now. And so I was like, this sounds awesome. Like it was in the middle of the conference was in Lithuania of all places. I'd never heard of that country up until that point. And so I was like, you know what, this sounds like a good laugh. So I went home, filmed a video, and submitted my application, and I got accepted. And I think the thing that got me accepted was I said in my video, because they asked you questions like, okay, why should you come? Why do you believe in entrepreneurship? Like, what's your kind of philosophy around that? And I sat down and I said, you know what? I think that businesses have a far greater ability to help people than governments do, because if I want to help people's health, if I'm a government, then I have to sort of enforce a tax, enforce laws, enforce these things to try and keep people healthy, like the food pyramid, or like free healthcare, or this government program in schools, whatever. But if I'm a business, if I can find a way to incentivize people to pursue something more healthy, find a way to make their healthy food cheaper, find a way to, invent a new supplement that helps them with their cardiovascular health, whatever. Well, then I feel like I have a far more greater ability to impact more people and impact more people in a positive way. And that actually got me accepted into this conference. And so, yeah, that was kind of that. And at that conference, for like a week straight, talking to these multimillionaires. One of them is a guy called Craig Ballantyne. If anyone's heard of him, he still does a lot of high net worth, like entrepreneurial coaching. People pay tens of thousands of dollars for a weekend with this guy. And we got him for free for a week. It was nuts. And they instilled a lot of the entrepreneurial philosophies that I still use to this day.
Wow, that's amazing. So would you say that's almost like a pivotal point in your journey?
Massively pivotal point. Yeah. They taught me to think about money as condensed time. So they said, okay, like if you have a problem you need fixing, let's say, I don't know, like my plumbing's blocked. Okay, I could go online, I could learn how to fix that. I can go to the hardware store, I can buy all the tools I need to fix that thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can invest my time and my energy and my focus into fixing that problem myself, or I can call up a plumber who's already spent the time developing that skill set, and I will pay him money and he will come in and save me that time and energy. So he taught me to look at every single problem or every single problem solving business as a way of like converting literally time into money and vice versa.
Wow, that's really interesting. And something that you mentioned as well within your application was how running a business you thought was more impactful for people, right? So was that always the goal? Was it always to change people's lives or impact people in some sort of way?
Yeah, I think that's always been a goal of mine. I think honestly that's most people's ambition. I don't think some people pursue money for money's sake, yes, but I don't think you're really going to get anywhere unless you have the ability to impact people. And I think you're more likely to have longevity in a business if it's helping people, if it gives you a sense of fulfillment in some way. And men especially, they truly only feel fulfilled when they're useful to other people, I think.
Yeah, that's really well said. So I want to take a step back really quickly and go back to your childhood, just because we don't want to leave that just yet. I want to find out if there was any challenges in your childhood, and if they had an impact into shaping you into the man that you are today.
Gee, I wonder. I don't really. It's interesting being asked a question like this. I don't really reflect back on it like this too much. I'd probably say it took me a while to understand like how to be sort of social and socially accepted. I was very much. I don't like using labels like this, but I got diagnosed with ADHD or whatever when I was a kid. And I don't refer to myself like this. And I actually had, fun fact, I actually had this conversation with my cousin yesterday. And he was asking me for advice on like, he's stuck, he's struggling. He was, yeah, I'm ADHD. I know I'm undiagnosed ADHD and blah, 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 blah. And I just cut him off. I'm like, mate, you've got to stop putting fucking labels on yourself. You're putting yourself in a box. The moment you label yourself with any of these words, you immediately put yourself in a box and you define what your brain is allowing yourself to do, what it's allowing itself to think it's even capable of. So for me, when I was younger, I was very rowdy, unruly, like hard to control, hyperactive, like whatever you want to call it, as a kid, and I had to go through a lot of like, I don't even know what you'd call it, like mental training and physical training to try and get that out of my brain and allow me to sit down and actually focus on stuff. And then I catapulted and did really, really well in school. But that was what early as a young kid, that was a big problem, was like learning how to sit down and actually like focus and not be disruptive in a classroom.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
That's great. Well, so that's a little bit about your upbringing. Obviously, you're straight A student, doing really well in school, and then now we're moving more into your life as a business owner or entrepreneur. So can we talk about your business ventures and the lessons you've learned from each endeavor, if you can break them down?
Yeah, sure. Probably the most significant ones were like I ran there was two prior to this one. There was one where I did like a Kickstarter with actually partnered with one of the guys from this conference that I mentioned before. And we went on to do a successful Kickstarter. He was a copywriter. I was just a guy with an idea. It was actually like some kind of it was an underwear kind of venture at the time. I do nothing at all about like stock and stock take and stock what do you call it, like rolling bank balances to maintain stock. Cash flow. Do nothing about any of this stuff. So completely cocked the whole thing up. But that is I look back at that as a good thing. That's a learning lesson, right? There's nothing like to me that 6-8 months venture is more valuable than a bloody business degree
Absolutely.
that anyone can get from university. Like I've got skin in the game. I've literally got my own money in the game. My reputation's on the line. I'm learning every day. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to solve problems. It's very practical, and to me, that's far more valuable than anything you could teach somebody. Like at a business school or university like that. So that was the first like catastrophically bad entrepreneurial venture, which I learned a lot from. And I took those lessons and applied them to my next entrepreneurial venture, which was a meal delivery business, like a healthy weight loss kind of delivery business. And that ended up doing quite well. We actually ended up doing like over $500,000 a year in revenue within a couple of years, based purely out of like Perth in Western Australia. So fun fact, the most isolated capital city on the planet.
Really?
Yeah. So it was very hard to once you kind of reach a market cap for like a delivery business, it's very hard to grow. Like there's not really anywhere else to go. So that we kind of saturated the market there a bit, and it got to a point where I was like, you know what, I want to get out of this business, and so I ended up selling it to one of our suppliers, and we bounced. But that business taught me quite a lot about planning logistics. Again, learning from my lessons on like cash flow and stock management, greatly improved, and learned a lot about Facebook ads and targeted advertising and stuff like that. Learned a bit about SMS marketing, email marketing, like in-person, like what do you call like flyer drops, like guerrilla marketing, in-person events, this kind of stuff. Yeah, and really, really honed a lot of my entrepreneurial skills, I think, with that business. And learned a lot of lessons about hiring and firing and what makes a bad employee, what makes a good employee. Yeah, that was a very, very interesting few years.
Oh, very nice.